If you want to be a better fireman, be a better Christian. And it gets a strange look every now and then. But if you think about it, Jesus was foremost servant. What are we as firefighters? We're just martyrs. We're servants to the public. So what better example for us to follow is Jesus.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the First Things First, a show where we talk about setting our priorities in the right order to help us fall in love with the job again. Today, I am joined by my friend, Anthony Gillan. Anthony, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I had the chance of meeting you this summer while we were at Firemanship. I loved your story. So we connected and I said, I got to bring you on and have you tell a little bit of your story. So to begin, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how you joined the fire service, and what the first day or the first time you stepped foot in a firehouse, what was that like for you?
So it was interesting. I started my fire career pretty old. I went to fire school at 35 years old. So I was grandpa in my recruit class. So it was pretty interesting. I'd spent time as a United States Marine. I did security work all through my time when I got in the Marine Corps. I was originally going to become a police officer because I was like, I'm tired of the security thing. The retirement wasn't there. I was like, you know what? I'm a weapons specialist. I know a lot of my tactics, what I did in the military. I would be a great police officer because of that aspect of it. I wanted to be on a SWAT team and went and taught some police officers and they're also like, you're not on a SWAT team full time. I'm like, well, that's boring. I want to be on a SWAT team all the time. So I did a ride along. I was like, oh God, this is not for me. Like, this is so different. And because in the Marine Corps, you've got a group dynamic and the police officer are kind of lonesome. You're kind of by yourself. So my, my wife at the time, she told me I'd be a horrible cop because her ex-husband was the cop and told me I'd be a horrible cop. I was like, okay. I said, there's an ad in the paper for firefighters. And it had to be for the U.S. Navy, but anyway. And I was like, how about becoming a firefighter? She's like, I think you're a good firefighter. I was like, oh, okay. So I went through the process, a couple of different non-steroid processes, got beat down a little bit from that because I scored really high. And at the time, it was to do with during in the 2004, there was a lot of affirmative action stuff going on. So I scored high. I was like number 3 on this list. And come to find out, I didn't get the job. I didn't get it in anywhere. Like they hired like the bottom like 240, 310, and 360 of person. And I'm like, okay. So I just kept at it. I was like, all right, you know what? I'll just go to fire school. So I went to fire school, took me a little bit to get hired. Started my career in 2005 with Marion County Fire Rescue in the state of Florida. Nobody was hiring at the time. Like you could go to City of Orlando, for example. You would go to the Center Florida Fairgrounds. It'd be 2 days for hiring, and they would have 3,000 applicants for 2 positions at the time. So it was competitive to say the least. And they would tell you right up front, if you've got a speeding ticket, don't bother applying, because they could be that selective. Not that case anymore. So Marion County was hired, got hired by them, a growing department, very aggressive department as far as tactics, which is fantastic. Got a lot of fires early on. So walking into the firehouse the first day, I was like, okay, I decided that, I'd always been drawn to service, being a Marine or else and different things. It was just one of those things I didn't know any different. I'd been wearing a uniform my entire life. So I was like, okay, I couldn't figure out how to not have a job wearing a uniform. So I was like, okay. So I got in the firehouse or else and was like, okay, this feels good. This feels right. As there's a bit of a rank structure. There's a fire team group dynamic, which I was gravitating towards. So I was like, oh, this is good. So my lieutenant at the time was not the best individual, and you learn a lot about leadership, by the way, from every good leader you have. You learn a lot. You can learn just as much from having horrible leaders, sometimes even more so. So this is one of those things, and I realized my faith was not the best then. I believe in God. That was pretty much about it, and other stuff. So, but I never would call myself a Christian or anything like that because I really wasn't. Went through different things in my career, and you get frustrated with people with a job, especially start to get good at it and get into it. And when you've got people that aren't, it's a little annoying. That's the nicest way to put it. So you start to get beat down a little bit, as I think all of us have, when you're committed to something and people that aren't. There's just a different wavelength with people and the way they think. Fast forward, got into teaching a lot, really gravitated towards teaching and mentoring and understanding where my place was and what I was good at. So loved seeing the spark in people's eyes. We teach them something new or something they didn't know, especially veteran guys that you taught them something they didn't know before. I love that look of the, oh man, I didn't think you could do that. Oh, I never thought about it that way. There's a little bit of a, gotcha, like, all right. And then hopefully that's the hook you get into them to get them better in the fire service. So was on our cadre for my department teaching, was the lead instructor for our truck company operations for teaching. Love being on the truck, love being a truck guy. So got to do that. Got big into RIT stuff, and I teach for a couple of different companies outside of Marion County. I was fortunate enough to be teamed up with Sean Duffy and Pablo Janner with Build Your Culture. And when they first started that, they brought me on pretty early. I was like the third or fourth guy in their cadre. And then I teach with Rob Ramirez for Mayday Mindset and that cadre, who is absolutely phenomenal. They're fantastic. They're some of the most skilled and knowledgeable individuals you ever meet, and dedicated for just the firefighter Mayday stuff and everything else. So I'm really fully immersed in that. Had the injury. So that's where the story came in from. Cody Trestle brought me in to talk about my injury. He's like, hey man, he called me up one day. He says, I was already teaching there for the Mayday Mindset class. He's like, hey, how do you feel telling your story? I was like, really? Nobody wants to hear that. He goes, no, I do. I think it's great. He goes, it's motivating her now, and you can see, he goes, because you have a faith element in it, and I'm a big about that. I was like, okay. I was like, you sure? Like, he's like, yeah, I think it'd be good. I was like, oh, okay. So made up the thing real quick and everything else, and that PowerPoint you saw now took about a week, and I was like, and I didn't really go by it because just like talking to a bunch of buddies. It's really nice, and I could feel things flow through me, and it took a different turn on different things, less about the incident and more about faith was involved in it. And so I think God at that point in time was working through me in a different way. So on that thing, so the injury. For those that don't know, 20 years in the fire service. I was teaching new hires one day, and we don't teach minimum standards. I feel that once you get through minimum standards and go to a fire department, you go to a higher standard. We were teaching truck operations, teaching ladders and stuff like that, VES. So I was like, okay, you're going to go to a 24-foot extension ladder, and you're going to bring with tools. We're not going to go grab the ladder, go to the building, go run back to the truck, get a hook, come back to the truck. We're not doing that. You're professionals. Like, we got a next level. But something I've always done for a long time, probably since 2000. I think I learned this technique 2007 at a conference by an FDNY guy. And we have alkalite ladders, which are I-beam ladders on the 24. So if you take the pike end of a pro bar, put it into the top round hole, so you've got the curve of it, you bend back on it, you've got tension. When you bring it back and click it behind the first ridge on the I-beam channel on the ladder, it'll stay. It locks in pretty good. So you can throw the ladder, or else it gives a little bit of oomph at the top of the ladder when you throw the ladder, and then you can extend the ladder up. And if you get up there with a hook, and then if you need to have a stubborn still, you've got a Halligan right there. So I've done this literally about 300 something times. Always trained in full gear, by the way. It's just one of those things. Always did it. Something I learned as a Marine. If you're shooting in shorts and a t-shirt, and all of a sudden you go into combat and you have a full kit on, your body reacts and moves completely different. There's a fatigue factor that kicks in. And there's a movement factor that kicks in there now where your body's a little bit bigger. So that means for us, your shooting position is going to be off because you've got a vest on and gear and this and that. Firefighting's the same way. So guys are in full gear and else. So extend the ladder up, the ladder sticks. We're getting ready to bring it down. I climb the ladder, come down. Don't touch the Halligan. Just point out where it's at and come back down the ladder. Tell the guys, all right, hey, let's go bring the ladder down, and everybody's going to run a rep now. So they're bringing it down. I was a lieutenant at the time. Says, hey, I'll tell you the ladder stuck. I'm like, all right, dang it. Our ladders in training division weren't the best. And so I was like, stupid ladder. So I beat on it with a hook and everything else in there and get them to bring it down a little bit. It jams, couple of clicks on the dogs. I said, all right, yank it to the top again. We'll try it again. We did that twice. The second time they did it, they yanked it pretty hard, which I told them to. They followed directions. They followed perfectly. At that point in time, the Halligan, for some reason, vibration must have went through the rungs of the beams of the ladder and broke the tension loose enough where the Halligan fell from about 22 feet from almost full extension and impacted my helmet. At that point in time, I was like, oh man, I got my bell wrong. Whew, that got me pretty good. The guys were looking at me like these guys have got like 3 days on the job, maybe. They put down their information and their emails and they're also got issued uniforms and now we're doing stuff. And these kids are like, oh God, what just happened? And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm good. I'm like, like every good fireman, you get hit in the head and the neck, what's the first thing to do? You shake your head around and crack your neck. Hindsight, probably not the best thing I could have done. I was like, all right. I was like, guys, I'm good. I'll be good. And all of a sudden, I can feel like I'm licking a battery, and I'm like, that's not right. And then I postured, and I went, I'm a medic. I'm a paramedic. I'm like, oh, I know what that means. So I told the guy, hey man, catch me, I'm going down. He was like, what? I'm like, catch me. And as I said that, I lost all feeling from my neck down. Like I went limp in this guy's arms. So he caught me, brought me to the ground. Now everybody's like, uh-oh. So I'm on the ground, and I'm like, okay, what do we do now? I'm looking down. I'm like, all right, nope. Hands aren't moving. Legs aren't moving no matter how much I tell them to. They're not moving. So I'm like, all right, guys, I need you to get me out of my gear very carefully. Don't yank me out of my gear. And they're like, what? And they're like, you're telling us what to do? I'm like, yeah. So I'm with it, telling these guys what to do. Meanwhile, I'm paralyzed. I'm like, okay. So there's a little bit of anxiety going on inside here. But everybody worked remarkable. Get me to the trauma center, trauma alerted me. Let my wife know, who was working at the hospital next door at the time. Because the hospitals are right next to each other. I mean, literally can hit a golf ball from one to the other one. And she was a charge nurse at one hospital, and they took me to the trauma center, which was next door. So my battalion chief calls her and says, hey, I need you to get to the trauma center. Tony got hurt. I don't know how bad, but he got trauma alerted. So she's like, okay, gotta go. So he tells her coworker, gives her a radio, says, I gotta go next door. My husband's hurt. Do all their little things. Come to find out, okay, the guy thinks I got a stinger. You'll be fine. Come to find out, we'll on to a different test or no, not fine. My spinal cord got damaged. So now I have a syndrome. I joke around about it. I have what's called central cord syndrome. It's the same thing Christopher Reeve had, the original Superman. Just obviously not as severe because I'm walking around. So fast forward, go through a lot of physical therapy, a lot of different things, a couple surgeries, learn how to walk again, learn how to feed myself again because nothing was working. Like my arms didn't work, my feet weren't working. They finally come back a little bit every now and then. Like my wife was talking about one day in the hospital, guys would come visit and my feet were moving. The guy was like, oh, that's awesome. He's moving his legs. And she's like, he's not doing that. That's his body. He's not got control over that. So don't say nothing because I couldn't tell. And so anyways, we've always been very close with the chaplain in my department. He's the one that married us. My wife's mom had a cardiac arrest, and he was a chaplain that dealt with that. I was a paramedic on the call for that, actually. This is before we ever started dating. And so we've had a very good rapport with our chaplain. He came up there now to talk to me, and conversations of faith is how the whole faith thing came into play a little bit. He says, we're talking. He says, looks at me. He says, how you doing? I said, I guess I'm pretty lucky. And he went, lucky? You think you're lucky? I went, well, yeah. He goes, something you've done hundreds of times went wrong. He says, and this thing came down on you, 10-pound Halligan bar come down, hit you in the head and the helmet. Temporarily paralyzes you. We don't know about your career. You don't know if you'll ever be a fireman again. And you think that you're lucky. And he says, you don't think maybe there's another entity at work here? I'm like, I never really thought about it. So we started talking about God and their analysis. And he says, he goes, this is just God giving you a little bit of sign. Hey, my friend. Because we started talking about it. I was like, I got a little big for my boots there, at the point where I was in full control of my everything, and we're not, no matter what you think it, we're not. And so God said, hey man, I'm ready for you to do something different. I love your passion. I love what you bring. I love the way you mentor guys. You're not going to do it I want you to do it to a bigger level as we have to view it now. And this is the best way to do this. So as hard as that is to accept, I was like, okay, it took me a long time. Still struggle with that, for being honest. Because you don't want to, as a Marine, I don't want to ever be out of the fight. So, and I'd done everything I possibly could to come after this injury. The minute I was allowed to clear to go to the gym, and do stuff for physical therapy. I was in the gym 6 days a week, sometimes 2 days, pushing the envelope every step of the way to come back stronger, better, like Steve Austin, stronger, better, faster than I ever was before. But there kept being roadblocks put in the way. No matter how hard I tried, there was roadblocks put. And my chaplain was like, "You can go ahead and try all you want." I was saying, "No, I'm just telling you." And I was like, "But why?" And he goes, "Because God has something bigger for you. You just need to accept it. And no matter what you do, you're not going to overcome that. He has a calling for you. You know, you're." And so I joked around when we did the thing. I said, "If you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for yourself." And it's true. There's just so many different things where faith has shown up and God has shown up for me. It just surrounded me with some amazing people. Not unlike yourself. You know, having God is putting godly men in my path and lining them up for me. I didn't realize that, and it makes your walk with God a little easier when you have godly men in your circle, because they lift you up and they remind you of different things, even when you don't feel like it. The hardest thing for us as firemen is to give something to God, because we're the final answer. We're the final option for stuff. We're the ones that get tasks done. We're the problem solvers. It's always up to us. So to let go of that kind of mentality and give it to God is a struggle sometimes. I don't know if it's for you. It very much is for me sometimes, and I forget that. But we have a good revival in the fire service right now with our faith. So one of the things I keep telling people now is, I'm like, if you want to be a better fireman, be a better Christian. And I get a strange look every now and then. But if you think about it, Jesus was foremost a servant. What are we as firefighters, first responders? We're servants for the public. So what better example for us to follow is Jesus? And if you have a love for that and the love for your fellow man, it transpires into different things and transcends into different things. You'll become more disciplined for yourself. Look at this morning we talked. You went out on a run. I went to the gym. Even though I'm not a fireman anymore, I still teach. So I still have to have a level of fitness to be able to teach at a good level. So being a better servant and wanting to be a better servant brings into a discipline for you to be in better physical condition to do the job you're called to do and said you will do. There's a commitment to that now. You have a commitment to your fellow man. You have a commitment to your brothers and sisters. Because God commands us to. So that all adds into that and makes you better at your skills, your training, your education, no matter what it is. If faith in Christ will end up bring that up even more and more and more and more, and have you do that desire without feeling it's a burden. I think that's important.
Well, thanks, Anthony. Thanks for sharing that. That's definitely a moving story to in a hard way get a wake up call from God. Quite literally, from top down coming at you. Sometimes we got to get struck on the head to hear God. So, what would you say up to that point? What was your life like in the fire service, trying to figure out what came first? Would you say that before then your priorities were out of order, and what was it like before your incident?
Very much so. My priorities were definitely out of order. I like most of the higher standard personnel in the fire service you meet. The fire service was my passion to the point where I was involved in so many different things. The breaking point one day was because the job will overcome you. Okay. And the job can, as much as the fire service it will give you, it will take away just as much if you actually pay attention or don't pay attention. So I remember one day in our house, a lot of times I use Google Calendar to keep everything in sync. All right. If not, it'll be all over the place. And it still is, because I have the habit of not putting things in sometimes when I'll schedule something. So I'd be going to conference to conference to conference to this, teaching. I'm also a Southeast Regional rep for Fools International. So I'd get stuff with that involved. And one day, it was a busy time, busy season. And this was before the injury. And my wife was like, she says, "Hey, you have another conference coming up." I was like, "Okay, I'll look at it." She said, "Put it in the calendar." I said, "Okay." So it was whatever. I was doing something. I went to the bathroom and look at my phone, scroll under now. So I click on it. And it says, conference with your wife, Cheryl. I just want a few days. That just snapped me in two. And I looked at that and I could feel tears in my eyes because I realized then what I was doing. And it took that. I went out there and Elsa and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry." And she was, "No, no, no." She was, I know. She was, I just want some time to. She was, "I love that you're passionate about the fire service. I love the commitment you have to mentor everybody in the different places, and you've got such a gift for it." She was, I'm your biggest cheerleader, but I would like some time too. I want the passion and the attention sometimes too. And I was like, "You're absolutely right. Like I've missed that, and I looked over that, and it's just, I'm so sorry." She's like, "No, no, no," because she's high level for her job too. Same amount of commitment and things that we have for the fire service. My wife had in nursing and medicine. She's definitely a do the right thing kind of woman. So funny enough, at the symposium at firemanship, the one comment that I'd made that people want to talk to me about that really kind of poked people in the chest was when I made the comment about as a man as being my wife always had a higher faith than I did, and so she kind of would hint about going to church or want to be part of a church or else, and I'm like, "You can go ahead. I won't get in the way. I'm all for it. Go ahead." As a husband, we don't think we're doing anything wrong. We think we're being supportive and letting your wife go to church. She doesn't want to go to church by herself. She wants her husband to be with her, lockstep, hand in hand, getting the word of God together. And I thought it was being a good husband by like, "I'm not getting away. Cool guys, you want to go to church? That's awesome. Have a great time." So she never went. And I said, "But the problem you understand, gentlemen in the audience, is that you're keeping your wife, whether you realize or not, from God, because she wants to go with you. And as a man in the relationship, your job should be to bring God into your family, for your wife, your children. That is your purpose. That is you to do. That is responsibility on you." My wife, as I said before, my wife is my best friend. All right. I got a lot of buddies and they're awesome. But I tell my wife stuff and go to my wife for things or anything else and rely on my wife for things I've never relied on my friends for. All right. And I think that's super important. I really do. She's everything. God, my wife, and the fire service. My fire buddies. And I got some awesome buddies in the fire service they're the guys that'll come up at 3 a.m. in the morning with shovels, like, "Hey, what do you need? We got this." But once I made that decision to really support her and do this with her and go to church and learn God's word with her, our marriage just became so impenetrable and amazing, and it was just more than I ever imagined marriage could be. For the one thing of making a commitment to Christ with her together changed changed everything. We had a great marriage anyway, but wow, it's just amazing now. So that was just one of those things. And when I made that comment at firemanship, I had numerous people come up and go, "You floored me with that." Like, I just realized that I'm a bad husband. I said, "That doesn't mean you're a bad husband. It just means your priorities are wrong," like we've talked about. I mean, your podcast is the first things first. If you're not putting God in your life, that's not the first things first. He's giving you everything you got, including a godly woman.
No, that's awesome, Anthony. I think that I agree with you 100% that if we get our priorities straight, putting God first and bringing our wives along and leading them, which then in turn is going to translate into our kids coming to church and being raised in a good environment, and then they're going to go on and do the same thing for their spouses and their families, and that's this beautiful legacy that we can create, and I call it the eternal return of investment. EROI.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's the best investment that we can make in the life of our wives, our families, our kids. And so I definitely resonate with that, and I appreciate that. And so when you turn into turn this new leaf in your life and your priorities are realigned, how much different is your calling and your purpose in the fire service?
It does. I missed the day to day being in the firehouse with my crew. Being a lieutenant, being a company officer, my crew was everything. I was 100% committed to my men and making them better, and not just being firemen, but making them better men and individuals, and showing how patterns of character. Like, I wanted character to matter. because first and foremost, being a fireman is only a small part of your life, and we identify with that. Unfortunately, like I said before, as firemen, we get caught up in that moniker of being a fireman. That becomes our identity. Not a husband, not a father, not a Christian. Fireman becomes first. Like tell everybody, oh, I'm a fireman. Like I said before, we wear fire shirts all the time. I mean, heck, if we got guys that have never worked for FDNY, but they got FDNY shirt. I make the joke about it being a Marine. I'm never going to wear an Army shirt being a Marine. It's never going to happen. So we get caught up in that, and it becomes this calling card of who you are. And we've got it. So it's great to have that passion for the fire service. But now that I'm not in it and I've got different things, my faith pushes me to be more complete and be a lot more patient with people, especially when I teach. The mentoring aspect comes into play is you can teach skills and people gravitate towards your character as you teach. You know, instructors come in all different shapes, sizes, volumes, bravados. I think you can get some pretty aggressive truck company work done through teaching without dropping an F bomb every 2 seconds, and being loud and brash or else. I think you can do it in a different way, and I've learned that. Because being a Marine, I was very aggressive on stuff or else, and it was nut knife hands and stuff like that. Are you going to do this and blah blah blah? It's just one of those things. Especially being a little guy, I got to talk a little louder to be heard because I was a little. Um, but there's a different. I can feel a hand on me that's like, all right, guides me a little bit, and like, hey, don't do it that way. Like, come on, use your words a little better than you can. Be more eloquent in how you speak. And people see there's a pub notice that you've got a little more of a peacefulness to you when you teach, and there's a different emphasis on certain things. I go more on the service aspect of it. Hey, we're doing a search for a reason. Think about what you're bringing to the table. Think about that you're been put in play by something bigger to make a difference in someone's life. Take this seriously. And people, oh, and you see them, their eye clicks on like, yeah, it's not just a case of because the SOG says so. God has given you this talent to be able to do this job and to be able to take this seriously and make a difference in a human being's life, just like He did in all of our lives. This is your part of it. Some people kind of give you like, but other people are like, wow, that's makes it a little bit heavier for them, but it also makes them a little bit more okay, yeah, more uplifting, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome, Anthony. I agree with you 100%. Just being able to impart that in people and use that passion, the love that you have for what we do. It's one of the things that I love about here about the first things first is I just want people to be in love with the job and stay in love with the job for as long as they can, because at one point, I was out of love with the job. And I think that we all go through that at some point in our career. And I want to ask you, were you at any point not in love with the job in your 20 years?
So there's been a couple of times, funny enough, how I got involved in Fools. I spent a couple of years in the department, and I'd always gravitated to fire service because of the sense of duty, honor, tradition, pride, and those were things I'd got instilled in me in the Marine Corps. And then I came into fire service and else, and depends what station you go to or different areas and stuff like that. And I said about my first company officer wasn't the best. Actually, my second. The first one, she wasn't there for very long. Then I got a different one. So I was sitting there one day and I was like getting really disillusioned with the fire service because all the things that I thought the fire service was bringing to that people had, I thought all firemen were going to have this pride and honor and this sense of duty, and it wasn't that case, by a long shot. And so I was sitting there and I was typing up my resignation letter. I was going to resign after 4 years. I was like, I must have missed the boat on what the fire service is. Maybe it in too late. And funny enough, so I was born and raised in Scotland. I'm Scottish. And so I was joking around. I put the computer aside. I was scrolling on something else. And I was joking around. I said, why is everything in the fire service Irish? Why is it always Irish and Fernatine and Irish men of fire? And Scots got involved in the fire service a lot too. So then I came across an article called Breithiachus Gardanachi, and it says brotherhood above all else. Well, it was written in Scots Gaelic, not Irish Gaelic. They're different. I was like, oh, all right, there's a Scottish thing. So I read it, and it was by a gentleman by the name Ben Flagle. Ben Flagel happens to be the now and has been for 11 years the president for Fools International. He wasn't at the time. He was just a captain with University of Fairbanks, Alaska Fire Department, a little two-station, I think 2 or 3 station department in Fairbanks, Alaska. And he's talking about this tradition and brotherhood he has with a couple of members that he had from Seattle and this and that. Why the heck does this guy have in Alaska in a 3 station department? I'm in a 24 station department and I don't have it. What is going on? So I emailed him. Hey, what did you do different? How do you manage this? You blah 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 blah. It's kind of like a rant a little bit. So him and I started talking, and now we're best friends. And Ben's a man of faith, and I didn't know that at the time. And he was also a Marine, and I'd come to find out through later on. And him and I are best friends. He's one of my mentors. He's a confidant. He's just amazing. He's a very force of peace and resource in my life, and helps me with my faith quite a bit. He's a great example to follow. So that was the first step in that when I was like, okay, yeah, I was very disingenuous. He's like, no, give it time, this and that. You can be the voice of change. Stay the course, don't quit. So, and he taught me else. And so was like, because being a newer guy, I'm like, no one wants to listen to me. I've got like 3 years on. No one cares about what I've got to say in the fire service. And then if you do care about the job, you're a woo woo to some, and the ones that do care to say, well, they're woo woos too, So it was depending on how the department was. You looked at it like, oh, and nobody once branded that early, like, oh, here's one of those guys, So as I got a little older on, I stopped feeling that way. Then when I promoted to lieutenant after years, then it started to hit me again a little bit of the fatigue of why am I putting so much into this when these people don't care? And as an instructor now, it's like I'm returning. We were hiring so many people in my department, and they were dropping. My department was dropping standards for people, and I'm just watching people come into the fire service, and I was getting very aggravated. I was like, probably to a point of a little bit of an arrogance, like, you don't deserve to be here, like, you don't have the right mindset. And you see them come through, and the fire service become a joke to them. There's a young man that I believe he's turned a corner. He's been there for 11 years now, 10 years. And when he first got hired with us, we had a non-certified recruit process, basically. We took guys that didn't have any background, and we hired them all in a class or an else, put them through fire school, put them through EMT school or an else, and it was a non-cert process. So first dealing with this young man, we're doing searches one day, and he was being a wallflower and being very lackluster in everything he did. So I come around the corner, and he'd wiped his hands off the inside of the burn box and put soot all over his face and his gear, and then he's taking a selfie, doing it. And I lost my ever-loving mind. And I was like, this is what we're doing. This is what you do. Like, and I was just like, that kid pulls out his back for day one for me for that. And I'd catch him every now and then doing the same kind of things. And I kept telling him, you don't deserve to be here. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. And then I caught myself one day, and I'm like, boy, I'm a real jerk. Instead of mentoring him and saying, hey, man, why are we doing this? What, you want to be here for a reason. You're still here. Why are you still here? Let's find the good things. He asked me one day, and he goes, we were doing something, training or else. He was with his crew, and he came out later, and he goes, why do you hate me? I said, I dislike you because you're everything I don't like that comes into the fire service. And he was just like, I said, and because you don't want to change. Because I do, I just don't know how. I said, then open your ears and listen, I said, I'll take the time to pour into you if you want it. But you think you've already arrived. I said, and the only thing you've done, the longer you've been here, is become more and more dangerous to the men and women around you. I said, commit or leave. And he committed. He's now I think now he's also one of our SWAT medics. He's done a lot better. He's got a family now. So like, okay, you've got something more in your pot now to help you. So, but those are a couple of times I was like, oh, I'm so over this. This is not what I want the fire service to be. And we get caught up in that when administration makes different things, different parts of your department make different callings, or parties that don't align with you. You get disingenuous or unenamored with the fire service because it's like, that's not how it's supposed to be, you know? So that's just kind of one of those things to look at.
That story of you pouring into and mentoring somebody who is struggling or who's not getting what the fire department is all about, it is something that it's up to us. There's something that I say that I read it somewhere, and it goes along something along. Firefighters are a product of the person that gets a hold of them first. So if you get that firefighter, and as you said, if you're a jerk to them, if you are beating them down and trying to, bend them into submission and trying to impart whatever, culture of the fire service by being mean and being a jerk, they're probably going to grow up in the fire service by being mean and being a jerk to the next guy, the next girl. But instead, you took the time to teach and have him open his ear and open his heart and be like, hey, I'm going to give my time if you're willing to give me your time. So it's an awesome story, and I think we need more of that in the fire service. Us taking the time to listen to people, because nowadays the guys and girls that are coming in, they want to know why they're doing something, why they're throwing the ladder the way they're doing, why they're pulling the hose line the way they're doing, and they're going to ask those same questions with bigger things, right? Like, why should I spend time with my wife instead of spending time with the guys? Why should I put God first instead of putting the fire departments first? And so just us being willing to take the time to explain to people, and sometimes just quite literally sit and listen. We don't always have to give solutions, right? We need to just sit and listen to people and spend time with people. So I think that's really a great thing that you shared, and it changes our perspectives a little bit. Not so much just wanting to shove our ideas and the things that we were ingrained with into the people that are coming on. So I appreciate that. But I have a question that I just came up with. Nothing that I've asked anybody yet. So you're going to be the first person that gets this question.
Well, all right then.
So is this job still the best job in the world? And if so, why?
I believe it is. I believe it is because of the way you get to impact people's lives. There's nothing else like it. The funniest thing I tell people, I said, the biggest way you can impact people's lives is being kind in the fire service. It's not the heroic things, not the running to burn building. It's the little things, interactions day in, day out that you do. You're a steward of what the fire service once was and meant to people back in the day, from tough men in long coats and big mustaches and sooty faces and grimy hands that were just these symbols of just strength and power and good. You're still that. You're not far removed from that if you don't want to be. So you still have to uphold what those men were back in the day. But being kind to every walk of life, everything, and just being kind and showing that you ultimately care. This still is the best job in the world. We get to make the friendships we make are so tight. It's I always laugh at that. It's like, do you think, we talk about going to conferences or else and the different training stuff like that. We have a grocery store in Florida called Publix. And I'm like, do you think Publix employees are talking around and like, oh, I did this. And the Publix guys, the shelf stockers all hang out together and go do something to do with Publix? No, they don't. But the fire service, we do. We're the only job that we will take. Once you learn vehicle classification, okay, there's not a whole lot of changes to vehicle classification. But how many times have you taken the same vehicle classification class from different instructors because they might teach you something different? That one little caveat of knowledge that guy has that guy didn't have may make the difference. We will spend our own money on doing that to learn something different from someone else. We are the only profession that does that. Even when doctors go to conferences or anything else, yeah, they don't go as much as we do. There's conferences you could go down social media and there'll be conferences throughout the whole year, different places. You couldn't attend every single conference the fire service has in this country. And there's so many people pouring into it that it's just amazing. This is the best time of our lives to be in the fire service because the amount of information that we could get from that and the quality of people that we have teaching. Still to this day, you have some older guys that still mentor one of my mentors, Scott Chappell, still teaches there now, a phenomenal guy. Cody, let's see, Rob, you've got all these different big names in the fire service. Mike Champo, Ray McCormick, all these guys that come into play, Rob Fisher, Rusty Ricker, these guys that care for the fire service, got 30, 20, 30 years on, that are still teaching the way things were and what meant so much to now. At no point in time in the fire service have we been able to have that kind of information at our disposal and the ability to go do it. This right here, you know, on a podcast from different areas, like we're sitting next to each other. They didn't have that in the 60s, in the 70s, or during the war years. They didn't have that stuff, that kind of information. So this is, yes, it's even more so nowadays than it was before. Did they run more fires? Yeah. Do we want more fires? Of course we do. Do we all like the EMS stuff? Probably not as much as it's just one of those things, it's a necessary evil. But I always joke about that. And I told my guys one day, they're downplaying being a paramedic. But you don't understand that your parents are more probably being a paramedic than they are being a fireman. That's because when they introduce you to people, oh, this is my son, he's a paramedic fireman. Paramedic all of a sudden goes first, no matter how much we hate it. Paramedic always gets put first because they feel that's smarter. I hate to say it. Also, being paramedic school is a year long. Paramedic school causes more divorces and relationship strife than any of the fire classes you get ever. You could stack all your tech classes on end, and it won't equal how long you spend in paramedic school. So why do our guys would give that Pat such a hard time? Oh, I'm a medic. You've got a better way to interact with people and provide service being a paramedic on a higher level. You're going to get more kudos, more chances to do the good thing being a paramedic, you will a fireman. We don't run as many fires as we do cardiac arrests. So I hate to say that, and it's like, oh, because I love being a fireman. But they both go hand in hand now, and it's still a level of service that we have to get good at and accept. Be good at everything you do in the fire service, no matter what it is.
That's awesome, brother. I agree with you. This still is the best job in the world, and I'm happy that you agree with that. Now, the last thing before I let you go, I want you to tell a story about a little tattoo that you got after your incident, because I got to see it, but a lot of people didn't get to see it. So perhaps you can explain a little bit about that, and you're even if you're willing, you can show it. So
I don't know if you'll be able to see on your camera. Okay, so I like tattoos. It is obviously a pro bar. It's a Halligan. So we joke around that the Halligan can fly through the air and hit me in the head. So we joke around about it because everything was so rapid. I went from the training grounds to the trauma bay to the ICU to surgery to ICU again to rehab, to here to there. Yeah, 24-hour tour was pretty hectic. So we call it the Flying Halligan tour. Everybody thought that was pretty funny, so I decided, you know what, let's do something different. And we're going to give a Halligan. We're going to give it wings for flying down. And I'm very much into World War II history and military history. I said, so let's give it the face of like a P-140 Warbird or something like that, that looks just menacing and like that it was angry at the time it hit me, like there was some vendetta. And so it has a date of injury in it. So my wife got the matching tattoo on the other arm and everything else because he was like, a couple of guys want to get it also that said we're going to get it. And then the medic that transported me, who's a very good friend of mine, I've known her forever, she went and got a tattoo similar of a Halligan with wings and the date on her shoulder. And because she said, yeah, of all the things, because I had memory issues from when getting hit, obviously, some real bad amnesia and a concussion. She said, of all the conversations, you don't remember. The one you remember is me saying, if you get a tattoo, I'll get one also. She says, of course you remember that one. So she was committed to get the tattoo. But it became a rally cry as far as like me doing good there now. So this Flight Halligan tour is a remembering of what happened and how my life has forever been changed. Still struggle with not being as a company officer and what my new role is, and still trying to find my way with that. There's a commitment to it that I still struggle with, but when I get to meet people like yourself and just new friends or else who are on a similar walk or else understand commitments, it makes it easier. And it goes, okay, I'm on the right path. That God has got his hand on me and moved me on the right path. Because without that, I would never have met you. I'd never have met some other people that I've met in my entire life. That part would have been either neglected from me or would never have aligned. So I'm very, very, very thankful for that in my life.
Beautifully put, my friend. Anthony, everybody, Anthony Gillan, thank you so much once again for the opportunity you gave me to sit down with you and chat with you and hear your story and share your story with the guys and girls that are listening. So I want to give you an opportunity if people want to reach out to you and call you or text you, or how can they reach out to you to keep this conversation going or talk some more about search, about RIT, and about anything that they want to talk about? How can they get a hold of you?
So I'm on Facebook, just think it's Anthony Gillan. I'm on Instagram, it's AJ Gillan 23, I believe. And my phone number is it's 407-937-9426. If you're struggling or you're trying to find your way, or you just down and need some motivation or some talking to anyone else, reach out to me. Text me, say, hey, I saw your podcast. I'm struggling with something, and get a hold of me. We'll pray, we'll talk, and we'll see what we can do. We'll see to get you out of a dark area. I'm there for that. That's what I love to do. That's what I love. I love to help people and motivate people. You know, I'm a pretty motivating little guy and I want to be. So it's just one of those things. No matter what it is, we can overcome. We can get through it. And we'll get you on the right path again.
Amen, brother. Well, thank you for that. And for everybody else, thank you for coming in and spending some time with us. Don't forget to like, share, and until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.